Hey guys, me coming back at you again with another informative video. And this week I want to talk about something called the stimulus to fatigue rate ratio and how to properly use it with your exercise selection and exercise variation in order to maximize progress in the gym, and how to use it in primarily a hypertrophy setting, but also how to properly implement exercise variation, mesocycle to mesocycle. So to begin, just to discuss what the stimulus to fatigue ratio actually is. So the stimulus to fatigue ratio basically describes how much of a stimulus we get per unit volume on each exercise compared to the amount of fatigue that is generated from the exercise. So what we basically mean by that is that some exercises have higher stimuluses than others relative to their fatigue cost, and then other exercises have very, very high stimuluses and very, very high fatigue costs. So a good example of a exercise with a really high stimulus but a lower fatigue cost is going to be like something like a leg press, for example, on the quads. And then something that's going to be more of a higher fatigue cost relative to the stimulus would be something like a barbell back squat. So, and the reason why I say that this is important to understand is that you have basically two aspects of fatigue that you need to keep into consideration. So you have something called systemic fatigue, which is referred to as total body fatigue, or a peripheral fatigue, which is more of a localized in like a specific muscle. So a really good example of systemic fatigue would be like a global sensation of just tiredness / sluggishness, and we all know this, like after a super hard leg day or whatever, and you have like a lot of like heavy squats or you did heavy deadlifts, you're going to feel just more overall tired than if you were to just do bicep curls, which would be more locally fatiguing to the biceps, or in the case of legs, using legs as the example, like leg extensions are basically only going to be primarily disruptive to the local site of the quadricep, with very, very little like other lingering signs of fatigue. And so the reason why this is important is because hypertrophy is stimulus and volume dependent. So if you want to get bigger legs, you should be doing enough volume to stimulate growth. And there is a principle where we want to accumulate the most amount of volume that we possibly can without running into recovery issues, and we run into maladaptations. So the problem with certain exercises such as the squat, which are super stimulative, they recruit tons of muscles, if your goal is to maximally develop your quadriceps, you're not going, let's say that you don't have like the best leverages for squat, such as myself, who has very, very long legs and a shorter torso, and I have to move the bar a lot more, and it's a lot more fatiguing for me, because, for example, if you're using like a leg press, there's very, very little other structures involved. It's primarily just going to be like your legs and glutes and hamstrings, etc. Whereas with the barbell back squat, because it is positioned on your traps, you're going to be using tons of other muscles in order to stabilize the spine. And generally, you'll be able to use a little bit higher loads. It's just going to be a lot more fatiguing. And so if you're trying to maximally accrue as much volume as you can to grow your quads or whatever, if you're always choosing super fatiguing exercises, you might not be able to accumulate as much volume as your actual quadriceps peripherally, because remember, systemic fatigue versus peripheral fatigue, which is more localized. Maybe your quads can't actually recover from more volume than you are giving them. But maybe if you are always choosing the most fatiguing exercises to grow a specific muscle group, maybe you will not actually maximally see how much volume that you can actually accrue and accumulate in a specific muscle. So this is important to consider when you are programming and when you are making exercise selection decisions on what exercises that you do choose. So if maybe squats are not the best exercise for you because they have a ton of, you just notice that you get super fatigued from them, and you have a very hard time recovering from them, and you just feel beat up, super beat up from them. Well, maybe if you're in a hypertrophy mesocycle, it would make more sense to choose other less fatiguing, just less systemically fatiguing exercises other than the barbell back squat. Maybe you do more leg pressing. Maybe you do more hack squats on a machine, which are going to be a little bit less loading of the spine. Maybe you do more unilateral leg works like lunges and Bulgarian split squats. Maybe that is a better way for you to handle your fatigue and actually being able to maximally stimulate that muscle that you're trying to grow. So in the case of hypertrophy, because this is primarily what we're talking about, because strength is a skill. It's specific, highly specific, as opposed to hypertrophy, which is much more general, because strength is about becoming as neuromuscularly efficient, or basically what that means is you want to become really good at performing a specific movement over and over again. So if you want to get a stronger squat, the best way to get a stronger squat is by squatting a lot. And that's also why typically in strength mesocycles we see that the actual amount of volume that somebody can survive and recover from is going to be lower than actually hypertrophy, just because of the nature of both the nature of the exercises and just the fact that you're using loads closer to your 1 rep max. But coming full circle, in the case of hypertrophy, when you're programming and when you're trying, and when the goal is to maximally hypertrophy, the musculature, choosing exercises that are going to have a lower fatigue cost, in some cases can be very beneficial relative to the stimulus, because you can actually accumulate more volume on that specific muscle, or before running into systemic fatigue issues, thus dictating the need that you are likely overreached and you need a deload. So I hope that this gave you guys a little bit of insight on considerations to make with your own programming. I hear a lot of dogmas about you must squat to grow your legs. Are squats a great exercise to grow your quads? Absolutely. They are highly stimulative, but they're also highly fatiguing. And because hypertrophy is stimulus dependent and not exercise dependent, maybe if you experiment here or there, if you notice that you're having recovery issues, or you can't do as much squat volume, or you're just not built very well for it, the movement doesn't feel very good, feel free to venture out into other exercises and see how you like them, how your progress is. Because unless you actually try it, you probably won't know. Some cues that I use as a coach are, I would look at limb lengths, body segment parameters. If somebody has better leverages for a bench press, they have shorter arms, they can probably do more volume on their chest. If I give them tons of bench pressing, or as opposed to somebody who has really long arms, I probably can make the safe assumption that they probably will not be able to do as much volume as somebody with shorter arms. So anyways, I've rambled for long enough. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys did take something away from this, please make sure to like, and then comment, share, subscribe. But yeah, I'm also accepting clients as always for right now, custom programs if you guys are interested in that. Social media is down below. And yeah, that's it for this video, and until next time, see you guys later.